Coming from Cincinnati, this is the Spin Lob.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Season 2, Episode 3. This is Mike Jones, Nick Helwig with the Spin Lob. And today we have Jack Kocur with USA Water Polo. He's actually the USA Water Polo national team pipeline coach. Get to know him a little bit more and see another side of USA Water Polo and maybe some personal stuff too while we're at it. The Spin Lob is produced and recorded live by Mike Jones and Nick Helwig. It's supported by the Ohio Squirrels. You're never too old to get into the game. Go nuts. And if you like swimming, and that's what we're doing so much of right now, that's what we're doing. You might as well join now. It's been a lot of fun still playing and being able to play during COVID. It's also supported by Marlins Water Polo. For the love of the game, there's Marlins Water Polo. Podcast is all about Ohio water polo and how we fit in the national scene. It's a combination of what's going on in Ohio, Midwest, and the national level. Over to Nick to talk about what's going on within Ohio and see how things are going there. So it seems like Nick's having a little bit of technical difficulties. So we're going to talk about a couple items here. So nearby Indiana, so
which is great to see,
team has been having some issues with, been having some scrimmages with Indiana University. They came down last weekend to participate in a small scrimmage. It seems like everything went well, and they actually played outdoors still. Within the Ohio High Schools Coach Association, it looks like there's some dates set up to have some regional and state competition in the spring. As we all know, they moved the season to the spring session, and the regional competition is set for May 15th, and the state competition is set for May 20th. I'm going to turn over to Nick to talk about the rest of the updates with the state.
Yeah, so the meeting that took place just actually this morning, this early afternoon, was just the board kind of trying to figure out where we were all at, and part of that was trying to answer some questions, and actually just brought up more questions than anything else. For instance, like who is going to be able to host tournaments, who's going to be able to host regionals and states, and we've got our school's going to be able to play non-affiliated schools or mixed teams because of protocols with their schools. We've got those kind of questions going on. Our team's gonna be able to play in dual matches and travel tournaments, and trying to figure out that type of stuff. Or, the bigger question is this move to spring going to be something permanent? And kind of
Seems like we're having a little issue with Nick here. So we're trying to deal with some issues around if this move to
is coming up for our zone, for the Midwest zone. And I know that there's a little leadership change, and part of that is Miguel and stuff like that is leading the zone, is going to be stepping down from, I think, his head zone chair spot, and so we'll see some new changes in that. And there's also the Water Polo Tough campaign going on. But for right now, that's really all we have going on in Ohio. Nothing much else happening. Swim season starts up this coming week, so that's always going to be a big thing to kind of see how the state's going to respond to aquatic sports. On how they run meets is going to be kind of showing us how we are able to run our tournaments in the spring. So with that, I will turn this over to Mike to talk with our guest.
So Nick, before you move on, let's just clear the air. So you went in and out a little bit here, and I want to make sure we cover some of the stuff. So right now, we still are planning on having a spring season. You have some dates set for regionals and states. That's right, for May 15th and May 20th.
Yeah, so probably early on, I'd probably say a month or so ago, there was a survey sent out, and coaches responded. And right now, it was set for, at least the coaches had, the majority of coaches said that they wanted the regionals on the 15th and state before May, before we get into Memorial Day, and trying to limit some disruption with graduations as we get closer to the end of May. So they kind of look at that. And if swim season stays on track with state being the last weekend in February, that means that we'll start to see the pool time open up for for the rest of the state to play some water polo starting the first week of March.
Okay. And based on that call that you had in the surveys, do you feel that some optimism is out there with the Ohio high school water polo coaches? You feel like everyone wants to just play?
From the board, it was kind of mixed. I mean, we're all hoping things go well, but just kind of watching the trend and kind of seeing that, down here in Cincinnati, I think we've been able to open up a little more with water polo than places in the north, and so I think that it's optimistic and hopeful. But the nervousness is just kind of watching current trends and what's going on and really kind of watching what swim season is going to do. And so December is going to play like a kind of a big role when they start their meets and see how that all kind of fits. And so it's just kind of still a waiting game, even though we can't wait because we got to book referees. Because now with everything pushed back, referees are going to be in a high demand. We've got, boys club and collegiate, you got girls club and collegiate, and now high school added in as well. So there's going to be a lot of water polo potentially happening in the first half of 2021.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not a bad thing, but we want to take our time and make sure we do the right thing and take the right precautions and protocols and things like that. So hopefully everyone's on board, but I'm glad to hear some success. You guys are keep moving along. So good news.
Yeah.
So let's move on. We welcome you, Jack Kocur. He's the USA Water Polo. He probably has a more formal title than this, but when I read about him, he is the national team's pipeline coach. In my mind, that's the breeding ground for the national team, finding and selecting players to be in the program and to be filled into that pipeline for next level for the future. I know the current Midwest player that's playing on the national team is Farmer. I forget his first name. Matt Farmer, I think, from Windy City. I know his former coach. I used to play against him, Kyle Perry, back in the day. And Nick, you played against him too, but for Miami University. So, Jack, welcome to the program. Glad to have you here.
Glad to be here. Thank you for having me. And it's nice to hear you guys are talking about water polo coming around the corner, and we're all thriving or thirsty for it out here, and just as much as you guys are actually across the nation. We all are.
Yeah, it's a little exhausting how much film I've watched over the past 6 months. Play as much actual water polo. Nick and I have been getting in the water a couple times a week still and doing some things. But Jack, when I first met you, it was actually a couple years ago. You actually came into Cincinnati for a coaching session, and it was in the middle of our state championships in Mason. I remember you took a red eye from California.
I remember.
Like red, your eyes were literally red when I first met you. I feel like you were a walking zombie, but you were so great to me and you were so great in front of us. We had to give you 3 gallons of coffee, but that 1 to 2 hour coaching session was great. It was a great thing that USA Water Polo did for us. And so it's great to have you back.
Thank you. And again, those types of trips, I hope that we can continue those. I hope that the national team coaches and John Abdu, I know John Abdu and Brian Linton are putting forth more opportunities out there. And I just hope that things open up and things like that can continue to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. So because not a lot of people on our podcast know you, they can Google you, but let's get to know you a little bit more. Give us a little bit of background about yourself, playing and coaching. I know you've been multiple staffs before, so give us a rundown.
I've been very blessed with a plethora of great coaches in my life that kind of paved the way for me and became my passion for myself. As a player, I just went to a local high school, ended up going to Pepperdine, which is about 30 minutes away from my house. Very honored to have Terry Schroeder and Jim McMillan as my coaches, and learned a great amount of not only being a young man, but also what it meant to be a family to a team. And then we were blessed to win in '97 at Pepperdine. I definitely carry that on with a lot of stories with all my friends and stuff. And then, I played the national team for about 5-6 years, just in and out. And, I came close, but not close enough. And, I regret a lot of things that during that time, what I did and decisions that I made not to become an Olympian. And I think I carried that through my, my maturity level and carried it through my coaching. And now my goal is just to help those not make the same mistakes or turn a corner here or there that's going to help them go down their road a little bit smoother or prepare them a little bit better. After Pepperdine, I got a chance to coach with Terry Schroeder for about 2-3 years, an assistant coach, and then he took over as the national team coach, and I fell in the sword of Pepperdine and coached there for about 5-6 years. Had about 2 really good seasons. In I think it's 08, 09, we ended up second in the nation at the end of the season at the end of the polls. We had a great season. Lost to USC in the MPSF by 3-2. It was one of the most memorable games I'll ever remember. Keeping USC to 3 goals and unfortunately kept us to 2 goals was something I'll always remember. And then after Pepperdine, I had the opportunity to kind of be mentored through Jovan, and one of the greatest coaches in a 10-year program that he's created and built at the Trojan family. And I had one season with 2012, was part of that NCAA championship. And then James Graham at UOP, called me one day after the 2012 season and said, "Hey, would you be willing to, help us and be part of the Tigers over at UOP?" And in 2013, we ended up going to the NCAA finals as well. So I've had a chance to be at 3 different finals with 3 different teams. And again, just seems like opportunities keep coming, and I'm very blessed to have those. After that, I moved on to the national team. I got selected by Dejan Udovic to be the assistant coach for the 2016 Rio Olympics, where the game became something I never thought it was. I really started seeing things that I never thought of, or video, scouting, breaking down film. It almost became like I was getting my master's or my PhD in water polo. And I really had the opportunity to really spend and devote a lot of time to the sport. And I was blessed to have that. And I hope now that I can use that and facilitate that and help coaches, not just in my local area, but across our nation, across this country, and share the knowledge that I've been blessed to be given. One thing I really like to say is I've had a chance to be either play under, coach us alongside with 8 Olympic coaches. And I feel like that has been really the foundation for my future success, to have that opportunity to be coached by 8 or play under or play with or coach with 8 different Olympic coaches. So the road is nice, and hopefully I can just share that with everybody else.
That's quite a road. Just kind of listening to that. Pepperdine was one of my reach schools, and by reach, I think I looked at it and was like, this place is amazing. I can't reach there. But I remember just kind of visiting one time and just seeing how gorgeous that campus was. So
it is a resort on a hill.
I don't think I would have been studying. I think I would have just continued to go down the hill and into the beach. It was, I had family out in California, and so taking that trip off, and so I'd be like, yeah, there's no way I would be able to focus here.
Trust me, I had some of those moments myself.
You mentioned something that really actually just stuck with me right now, and you talked about how you had made some mistakes, but then you kind of turned off of that. Can you, like, not to focus on the mistake part, but can you talk about how you kind of turned that corner and built off of what you learned from those to become to change what you've done?
Definitely. I was not the most mature, 21, 22, 23-year-old, and I didn't make the right decisions and to be an Olympian. This is something that, a question that we might be talking about a little later, but being an Olympian is a lifestyle. And at that time in my life, I was not living a lifestyle of an Olympian. And I mean, to be honest with you, I was probably one slot away, one position away, had a chance to make the 2000 Olympics. And I felt like I did not do what it took or what it takes to not be cut. And I think now as a coach, I open up those conversations with athletes. I open those conversations with my student athletes and say, what are you doing today to give yourself the opportunity to make a team, not to be cut from a team or to be cut from a situation, or, have a school or a college close the door on you. So those are the nuggets that I really took. And it took me a long time afterwards to realize that.
I think as a coach, that is huge, because you've got, especially if you're dealing with, high school age kids, like they're young kids still. And so they're going to make mistakes. And I think often they feel like once they've made a mistake, they can't come back from that. But, being able to address that, to change what they're doing, or, as a coach, try to head them off and talk to them before they even make the mistake. If you can catch that before you go, I think that's huge. And it takes a long time, I think, for coaches to be able to recognize that path that they might be on. We know the kid might be annoying or something like that in the pool, but it's kind of looking at the larger picture of where they're at, at school, and what they're doing to try to help them, choose the path that's going to be most successful for them.
Without a doubt. And all that does is take in a little time and energy and effort to have a conversation. If you open up that dialogue with that athlete and meet them where they are, a lot of times this is coaches or, ODP coaches, pipeline coaches, or whatever it is. We want the athlete to meet us where we're at. Right. And I'm not to say that we're going to be lenient on them or give them grace to be not okay or not good. At the same time, you just got to meet them where they're at and find out where they are in that day, and how best we can suit them to help them be the best that they can be. And that's something at the time of my career playing, not making that 2000 Olympics. Again, I wasn't mature enough to handle the situation where I should have been the first one in, the last one out, where I wasn't. I was, one of the last ones in, and as soon as practice was over, I was out. And those are things that you end up getting cut from not making the team. And, every time I talk to a player now, that's going out for the junior team or the senior team, I said, listen, man, first of all, you got to shake their hand every day in practice. You got to shake their hand. Next thing, you got to look them in the eye. And I'm talking about athletes, young athletes dealing with national team or pipeline coaches. And you have to show presence. You have to show personality. You have to show character. You have to show, where you are. And are you there just to be a sponge and take from us? Or are you willing to, provide something for the program? And that's something I did not do. And I really regret that in my life.
Yeah, Jack, I agree with you. I think there are so many more intangibles that people don't realize when you are doing something like that at that level. And, I didn't go through ODP. I don't think even ODP existed when I was playing camps. I didn't do anything like this. And I kind of regret not doing that. I was involved with Boy Scouts and all that stuff too at the same time. But there is a next level maturity that's there that needs to be captured by these athletes in order to really embrace the entire program and to be looked upon as a leader and as a key player. And yeah, I 100% agree with you.
Yeah.
When you were in Mason, not to continue to go back to that topic.
Oh, let's go. Come on. It was cold, by the way. I remember how cold it was.
Oh yeah, it's late October and it's early morning, and we're doing a coaching session. We're all hungover from the night before of just being in such intense games. There might have been an upset the night before, and so everyone's in that room huddled. I'm like, oh geez. And I remember one thing you talked about, which still sticks with me. And I work for a Fortune 500 company, and we talk. We don't talk about water polo in athletes that much, even though we're super competitive. It's a sales job. And one thing I talk about though is what you mentioned about how when you advise a coach, or when you're an assistant coach or you're coaching a team, and you look at your squad of, say they're not that fast, maybe they're really good at passing and shooting, or they're really fast and they're not that good at shooting, or they have a strong center presence or strong defensive presence, but you will go back to some composition book that you have with all your practices laid out, and you will pull down that book from another team that's similar to the roster you have right now. And you will pull down and say, how do we start off that program? And you talked about a story, and I forget, maybe you were with an USC or you're coaching another team. And I remember you mentioning that really hit home, because my team at work changes constantly. I mean, we don't have a lot of turnover. We promote a lot of people, but like every now and then we'll say, all right, how do we train this kind of new hire 2 years ago? And what can we different or maybe the same. And let's talk about not reinventing the wheel. Let's talk about seeing how that person had success back in the day, and we can do the same kind of success with this person. And that's more on an individual basis, yours more as a large group. But that always hit home that, like, you having those records, and we still, and I promise you, I could pull up I'm on the laptop right now, actually.
I love it.
I could pull that down and show you 25 different training calendars for 25 different people and how we did it, the 16-week program, put them through. It's amazing how
That's
and I always looked at that as a really cool thing that you mentioned. We're still living it right now.
It's interesting. Being a coach is more about organizational management. Yes, you get the X's and O's and the tactics and the creativity side of it all, but really, it's really about how do you use people, and how you use the strengths and the weaknesses of a collective group, with levels of interest that are from extremely interested to they're just showing up because they have to, and you have to learn to dial them in, and you got to not only that, then you got to make sure that they buy in. So you're right, taking a look at, from 20 years, 25 years of experience of coaching, having the dialogue or the books, the practice logs that you have, and it definitely helps. And I think that's one of the things that I love so much about coaching is each year it's different. I mean, each year there's a lot of similarities, but each team is unique in itself. And I really enjoy that part of coaching. And then, the chess game, how do you use your pieces?
Kind of going off.
By the way, we're using Google Doc now, so I don't carry any books anymore. So all our practices are on Google Docs.
Oh, I agree. That's been the greatest thing. I can be in a plan bell, and my assistant coach can, if she's got some time, we can sit there and finagle our plans as we're kind of like, okay, well, let's pull this plan from a couple years ago to fit, like you said, to fit our team, because I wasn't able to make that coaches meeting. But and Mike, maybe you told me that, but I've heard that line, and so I started thinking about like creating that. Okay, and I labeled each year. Okay, what is our team this year? Okay, is it strong center? Is it outside shooting? Is it fast? Is it what? So I label based on that, and I can like, okay, oh yeah, this drill is really good, and make sure we pull that back in to work on it. So that story got to me somehow, and I wasn't even able to make that meeting.
I love it. It's great stuff.
But kind of going on with that coaching stuff, can you kind of explain how like this national pipeline works? Like give us a little like inside scoop on the process on how a player can really start to be built into that pipeline, what they might need to do. Is this, all part of the USA contract? How does that all kind of work?
So I'm not currently in the day-to-day of ODP and stuff like that. I'm more, I just got brought back on with the junior team in 2019 as an assistant coach. So I can kind of speak on behalf of what we did in the past and what I see they're doing now. Obviously there's local 1-day, 2-day camps in your local community. And I say local for you guys, and you guys might have to go to a different state. It's more in your zones. You have to show up to those. You got to participate in a 2-day camp. You got to show your talents, you show your skills, you show your character, you show your disciplines, and then you're selected to a team of whatever age group you're in. There's development's the youngest, and then cadet, and then youth, and then the junior team is mainly college kids. This is a different age group of college kids. So you're being selected inside your team, and then once you're selected inside your team, you're going to compete with your zone in a tournament out in March, and typically it's in March, out in California and Riverside. And then from there's a mini tournament from all different zones participating in it. And then the national team pipeline coaches, roughly about 3 to 4, sometimes even more per age group, per development, per level, selects, anywhere from 70 to 80. At the higher ages, when you get older, the numbers drop a little bit more. And then from there, those numbers do some training camps, in this summertime. And then they kind of narrow that number down in the training camp to a competitive team that competes for international training or a tournament or a local training tournament in August. And that's typically how it goes. But what's great about it is it definitely brings the figures. It reaches out to the communities that are outside the bubble of California and into your local community, into the Northwestern zone, the Southwest zone, the Midwest zone, all those things. The hardest thing is, if I can encourage anybody, it just can't be ODP. You can't just wait for those 2 trainings. You can't just wait for your own club and then those ODP trainings. You got to do whatever you can to get out there a little bit more to prepare you for those ODP camps, those ODP opportunities. Because a weekend, if you have 2 different weekends, that's 4 days. You have 4 days to prove yourself. And that's kind of hard sometimes to prove yourself. And you don't want to be that athlete that gets lost in that shuffle or in the numbers and really you didn't get a chance to shine. So it's really what you're doing today in your local clubs, your local high school programs that can prepare you to shine during those weekends.
What is the training like at those practices? Like, is it heavy conditioning? Is it skill work? What kind of goes on that the kids like need to focus on? So I guess I'm kind of asking, like, what is it something that they want to make sure they're ready for to be able to show their highest level at those kind of the different camps and stuff like that they need to get to?
You definitely do a lot of skill sets, and those skill sets are usually typically trickled down from the senior team. So in 2013 to 2016, we've created these videos that you see now in USA Water Polo with a lot of our athletes, and we're breaking down, reverse sculling, we're breaking down how to shot block, we're breaking down 5-man, and then our wall drills. And then you're bringing those to those camps to then teach, illustrate to not only the local coaches so that it actually trickles down to the community, but also to the athletes. And what you're typically trying to do is you're trying to see which athletes can move in a new phase or a new drill and how effective they can be in a quick amount of time. Can they master it within 15 seconds or not 15 minutes? Or does it take them the whole weekend, or they can't get it because they have never functioned that way in their own practices. So there is a lot of skill sets. There's a lot of individual stuff, and they do a lot of positional stuff. Like centers are working on some stuff. The defenders are working on stuff. Usually when you get to the youth level and a little bit of the cadet level, you start breaking off into your positions. The development level still is not necessarily entirely, centers go there, defenders go there, attackers go here. It's kind of a group combined of different types of training that way, because at 14 years old, you might be an attacker now, but wait until you turn 18, you grow, 4 or 5 inches, you're no longer an attacker, you're a center. So you got to kind of keep a nice base for them at the development level. And then you also get a chance to scrimmage. So you do some scrimmaging and some 6-on-5 stuff because the coaches want to evaluate your flow of the game. How do you see the game? How do you vision the game? Do you see the game inside the game, or are you like a spectator out there? So they try to, in a short amount of time, in about a 13-hour weekend of training, they put a lot in there.
So I guess being very adept, that throwing on the coachable kid is the one that you're looking for, one that can adapt, that can learn, that can, adjust to new stuff, to adjust to what's being asked of them without having to take a whole weekend, is kind of that player, if they can develop that early on where they're, like you said, putting in that extra time, being the last out, but first in the pool, is kind of showing that dedication, because they're going to have that built in intuitively coming into these level of camps and stuff.
Yes. If there's athletes listening right now and we're to give you some advice on how to prepare for ODP, first of all, you got to ask yourself, is the program that you're involved in, are they pushing you, challenging you, and they putting struggles at your practice? Are they really struggling, like making you struggle through practice? Because that's going to give you the diversity to get through things, right? And then the next biggest thing is, are we learning the fundamentals that are going to complement me in the game, as well as the fundamentals that ODP programs that are putting on? And all those fundamental drills and concepts are on USA Water Polo. So every coach has access to learn those, to put them in and implement them into their own programs. So if I'm an athlete, am I playing with the right program that's going to then prepare me for that road ahead of me? If that's my vision and goal, is to go to ODP and make the pipeline programs. I don't want to go to a program that I don't have any fundamentals and we're working on plays at my own school. We're not learning the basic fundamental water polo movements from point A to point B, or horizontal to vertical, vertical to horizontal in our practices. And then I'm being shocked when I show up to practice because I've never seen or heard or even done these movements in practice. So you got to make sure you put yourself in an environment that's going to help you be successful.
Now, what advice can you give a player? So out here in Ohio, there's not as many choice in programs. I think we're lucky here in Cincinnati that there are two, club programs, the Marlins and Moose. But you get into like Columbus really only has one club team in the non-high school season, and same thing for up and further north in Ohio. If they don't have that choice, is there something you can advise them to do to get those skills other than, watching videos? That's something to pass on to coaches, or what advice would you give to those types of players?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think that's a challenging question that those communities have, right? They don't have the access. They don't have the pools or the coaches, their programs in their local community. And they have to travel 2, 3, 4, sometimes 5, 6 hours to get to somewhere in a weekend, right? So how do you advise that? You advise, you need help by mom and dad. They have to invest. They have to invest their time. They have to invest in the value of finding resources for you. That could be clinics. That could be camps. Not only your local community, but it could be outside the community. It could be in different states. There's so many collegiate camps going on right now. Colleges are putting them on at all ages and levels. It'll get your, it'll get your interest. It'll motivate you to want to keep going. And if you show up to one of them, right? One of the, I have a 14-year-old son, and he's going to start going to summer camps at colleges because I want him being mentored by college athletes. It's like, why would you not want that? I want them being mentored by college coaches, and I want them walking on the campus that's going to inspire them to want to go to a university someday. So I'm embedding my own 14-year-old son in that environment so that when he comes back, he's thirsty, he's hungry, he wants to make that lifestyle change to do something with his sport. So that's what I would encourage these athletes that are in these remote areas that don't have the access. You got to find it. You got to get out there and travel to it. Or invite coaches. There's a lot of college coaches, and there's a lot of coaches like myself that would be happy to come and travel the country and do camps and clinics for programs. We need humble coaches that are willing to take on that task.
Jack, so back to your comment about players wanting to or needing to embrace the game or just be more involved as far as the characteristics that you're looking for to be a part of the pipeline or the and just get that next level experience. So when I went to school at Ohio University, we played college club water polo. So certainly not the level that we're speaking of right now, but there was a freshman on our team who's never played before, only swam in high school, and he was awesome. He loved everything about the game. And we're at a tournament at IU, so another club tournament. We traveled, 3 hours, go out there. We're playing Big Ten teams or bigger programs. And we played a team, Purdue. Purdue had 22 players on their bench. We had 3 on our bench. And one guy who's never played before, and the 2 other guys barely didn't play either. So our top 7 all played, and we were worn out. And this kid's on the bench, and he knows, he's just learning the sport and things like he's having fun. And beat Purdue. And the coach for Purdue comes up to us and says, "Great job, great win, whatever. Never heard of you guys before. Can't wait to play you guys again." It was a fun gathering. And the kid, this freshman, I'm a senior, and this freshman says, "Hey, do you mind if I ask you a couple questions about the game?" And this coach, who's a grown adult, who's clearly been around the sport for a while, he knew his boys. Yeah, he was subbing well, yelling things out correctly. And he sat there. We watched Michigan versus Michigan State, which, in any, you saw the football game this past weekend. It's a bloodbath or what sport they're playing. And he walked us through every angle of their
That's awesome.
teams. And this kid ate everything up, and I ate it all up. It was awesome to feel
Yeah.
like and see that next level. And I'm like, I've been playing this game for like what 9 years, and I've never seen this stuff before that he's talking about. And that gave me the next level view into this game that I've never seen. I now see it. I mean, I think Nick sees it too because he's seen 1,000 games and these conversations you can have about calls. And it's not just, swim down and rip it. It's find the vulnerability in the defense, work it around correctly, and find the best opportunity depending on what team you're playing and things like that. It is a next level thing for our sport and for our team here in Cincinnati. And I cannot appreciate the people that have done that. People like you and this guy, and I forget his name, but he's a longtime coach. I think he's well beyond Purdue now, coaching club. I think he's doing other things, but I can appreciate your comments about that. I think it's amazing how you mentor student athletes like that, and also you still preach to this day on what you're expecting out of a kid and what you're looking for.
You touched on a great point that there are so many people in our water polo community that are willing to take the time, and all across the country, in small little cities, that just like this gentleman, that this coach. I mean, first of all, what a great coach that could be, and to have that mentorship moment. But they're everywhere, and the athlete and the family's got to seek that. They got to find that. If ODP is what you're seeking for, and you want to grow in the pipeline, then you got to get out there. You got to get out there and sell it. And you got to get out there and research it. There are opportunities. You just got to find it, and don't take no for an answer. Just like you're a salesman, right? Your cookies still taste good, even if they don't like them. That's a salesman approach, right? Because they say no doesn't mean your cookies aren't good.
Right.
You just got to keep going and find the next person that's going to enjoy your cookies.
Right. No, I agree with you. So speaking of cookies, what sometimes coincides with cookies is coffee. Sometimes, maybe better. So I've seen on the social media, and I've seen some replays and some chatter about this, about the coffee with Coach Kocur, and I want to hear more about it from the guy. So, walk us through what this is, how's attendance, how often are you doing this, and give us a breakdown of what's going on.
It was something that, through this pandemic, us being all home and being stir crazy and not being on the deck and not being able to do anything. I'm just going to email a bunch of my buddy coaches and see if they'd be interested in getting together and walking through some film, walking through some tape and breaking down front court offense and this and that. And it allowed me to stay sharp. It allowed me to actually put more things down on PowerPoint and video for my own program. And basically what it just became is this organic community that is thriving for coaching education. And our very first session was back probably in March. And I think I had 25, 26 coaches, and probably more than half, I would say 2/3 of them were all Division I college coaches. And then some high school coaches and club coaches. The very next week, it went up to 50. The following week, it went to 75. And then we got up to about 90 to 100 in the first 2 sessions. And what I mean by sessions, I've been doing different sessions that are pertaining to different aspects of the game or different elements of the game. So I did like counterattack. I've done front court defense. I've done front court offense, principles of the game. And I'm just sharing my terminology, my information, and not holding back. If anybody who's my local in my leagues, they want to know anything about me, they can literally, I am telling you how I coach in essence. And it's been great. It's been fantastic. The dialogue we've been having with some great college coaches, Olympians, anywhere from, we've had John Abdu on there a couple times. We've had Adam Kokorian come on and talk about his women's team with some of the clips that I had. It's been amazing. It's been amazing. And right now I'd love to see you guys on it, but right now we're in our series, our 4th series, I think it is. And we're going over games. So like game of the week. And right now we're breaking down USC and Stanford's women's 2019 NCAA finals.
Yeah, I get your emails all the time, and every time I'm like, oh, I can't make it. I got a class. I've really thought about like trying to find a way to have my class do some sort of movie so I can just join the call.
I love it. Well, Nick, you know what we're doing now? This go around, we actually are recording them and putting them up on YouTube. So those coaches such as yourself who have day jobs, and 90% of water polo coaches they do have day jobs. They're teachers, or they're in some type of business or work during the day, and they volunteer at night for water polo. So we didn't want to neglect those coaches that are thriving for some information and be challenged or mold their program in a different way. So we just uploaded our first session last week. We've already got over 250 hits on it. Just that clip alone was like a 40-minute clip. We just did this other one. We had over 100 participants online on the Zoom call listening to it. So it's getting some momentum and some interest. And again, it's great. I'm having such an amazing time doing it.
Yeah, that was actually my next question, is for coaches who can't get it to find a way to, how can we watch those, and that kind of answers that. Especially, I think those videos, along with things as simple as like, tip of the week, or those, like, for coaches, those are huge, especially coming out of, Midwest states and stuff like that, that you have this resource of, oh, well, we can do this drill, we can, here's something to work in. And I think the more access we have to these types of, videos or calls, or, camps where you can't travel. I know there was something in Chicago that a bunch of Ohio people traveled to, but if you couldn't make that, like, these are like the next best option, or sometimes even better options, because you can replay it, or even show your kids the video of it so they can understand what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, we're going to start recording all of them and start putting them up on YouTube, and see if there is a following such as yourself that will spend the time and watch them later. Because we also are, we're in the middle of, my partner and I we're in the middle of thinking, creating an adventure for a coaching education platform for water polo. There's nothing quite out there right now. I know USA Water Polo is doing something with Drew Clute and Ian Davison are doing a phenomenal job of reaching out to clubs all around the country and giving them the fundamentals of how to start a program and all that stuff. But, my mindset is, how can I get a little deeper in the X's and O's? How can I challenge the tactics, the 6-on-5s, the 5-man, and really break down, and not just give my opinion, really just, what do you see? And you should be on some of these calls, you guys. I mean, I got coaches I've never even heard of that are just chiming in like, yeah, I see this, or I see that movement here. And I go, yeah, that's great, but is that the highest percentage? I mean, we're just having fun with these calls. It's great for me, because I feel like I'm coaching, even though I'm not coaching on the deck. So I'm not missing a beat right now, hopefully.
Yeah, I think it's great that you allow that interactivity with everyone on the call, because believe me, not to chirp about our referee association, I ref for 10 years for Ohio, and we do the exact same thing. So our head of officials puts up something on the screen, and he's like, what's the call? What would you call here? And we talk about it, different scenarios, argument, and in a good way. There's a very good argument. And even during our practices, we talk about, even though we're in COVID mindset, we talk about, well, that can't happen, or that's not going to happen, or here's the call, here's the correct call. Even today, we talked about, Nick and I mentioned a goal that would have still counted, because even though the whistle blew or the shot clock went off, the ball was still in motion towards the goal, would have gone in, and it did go in.
Yeah,
I didn't block it, but it still would have counted. And we have a next level of thinking. It's not just a thing that we attend to at practice on Sundays and Wednesdays because we want to get in shape. It's also because we have this passion to understand the game and get better at learning the game, and therefore people like Nick can educate his kids better about the game. Hopefully we're not making it less or worse for him to educate or improving him, but it's that kind of next level. So
Mike, I love that. Yeah. I love that concept with the referees. I had Joe Pila. Him and I are great friends. We've traveled the world together, him reffing one of the premier refs that we've had in our country. And, I have a couple of referees have been showing up to these meetings. if you would want to hear all these Division I coaches talk about a couple calls that was in that third quarter of the USC Stanford Women's NCAA Championship, I just posted something on Twitter, and I think it's about 6 minutes. Oh man, it was such a just great conversation regarding the call versus if that wasn't the right call, what should have been the call, and then did that change the dynamics of the next play? And then let's get down to the other. I mean, it was a great moment for just us dissecting the game, what should be called, how should referee could have changed that moment or corrected that call. So some great education, not just for coaches, and I hope more referees will buy into it and learn a little bit more on what we're all thinking.
Yeah, and it's not just what impacts the next couple plays; it could impact later in the game. So if you don't exclude a player in that moment because of over physicality in the game, or maybe a misconduct or something unfortunate that could happen, could escalate to something else within the teams down the road in the second, the third, or even the fourth, and you're not pulling, and now the coaches are chirping, not pulling a yellow card, because it just becomes engrossly bad for the entire game. Not necessarily the team, but the game, the integrity of the game gets worse. And I remember, not to go into some games here, but there was a game, it was an NCAA finals or semifinals game. I think it was a men's game. And the call was so controversial that the goal was either in or not in. It was like right on the line. And at every angle was being looked at on Twitter. And I'm yelling at the TV because I'm watching it live. That was in. And then Twitter's saying it wasn't, but somebody else. It was, and that's the kind of controversy that actually helps the sport get better, because we're actually having a conversation about it.
Right.
And how one,
as well as changing the format of getting instant replay.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
Those are the conversations that need to be had.
That's right. Yeah. So.
And I just hope my whole purpose behind this coaching with Kocur was mainly just, let's just educate, let's just talk, let's dialogue, let's get out there for refs, coaches. I would love parents to get on. For us crazy as of a game that water polo is to watch as a spectator, why would you not want to get involved, learn, get on calls, and learn about the game, so you're, as a parent, aren't going crazy thinking that something should or shouldn't be called, but yet you don't have no clue what the rules are. I mean, I would love for family members and athletes to be on the call, and it just becomes this great form of education. And again, it's not about me. It's about everybody's input.
Yeah.
Well, we have touched on a lot of things tonight, and you've spent a lot of time talking with us already. But do you have any final, to kind of wrap this all up, do you have any final, words or advice for coaches or players or both, or parents, even like you just said, of players, of things we haven't touched on?
Yeah, I did write something down, and pertaining to some of your questions, and something that you mentioned about coaches and families and parents and athletes is it's all the same for me. A coach needs to be educating their athlete on these points. You have to educate them on being coachable. You have to make sure that, if we're evaluating you as an ODP player, as a coach, you have to teach your players to be intelligent in the game. They have to understand the game. Put time in film, put time in scout reports, put time in on the X's and O's and walkthroughs. Don't just get in there and scrimmage all the time. Like, these athletes need to know what the game is, like a chess game. Another thing is, I love evaluating athletes on their vision and their anticipation. If they have great vision and anticipation, sometimes you can't coach that. And that's an athlete who's put the extra time in to see things and study the film and study the game outside of practice. We have a saying at, my programs, that champions do extra. If you want to be a champion, you got to do extra. If you're just doing the same thing everybody else is doing, you're never really going to catch anybody. So you got to do extra. The other thing I want to challenge parents, I want to challenge coaches, is you got to create gritty kids. If we're soft on them, they're not fragile. They know how to, get through things. They can figure it out. We are successful because of the way our parents treated us with grit, right? Why can't we do the same with this generation? So I really, every day we struggle. I put my kids through struggle, and I want to see the reaction, and I want to educate them through the reaction. So I want to challenge parents and coaches to don't be gentle on your kids. Take things away from them, challenge them, keep them accountable at the highest standard, because I know, and that they can achieve it if they truly believe in it. And then the one thing I harp on every single day in my program is servant leadership. I know parents, if you're a parent and you love your kids and you're doing everything for them, you're a perfect example of a servant leader. Why can't our kids be that? Why can't our kids be that for each other? Why can't they be that for their own program? And I'm tired of all these, well, I'm a captain. Well, in my program, we don't have captains. Every kid has a role and a responsibility in being a leader, and they are supposed to lead in their strengths. So if a kid is great in the weight room, he's supposed to be the leader in the weight room. If his kid's great in academics, he's supposed to be the leader in the academics. So we don't have team captains. We have a whole team of servant leaders. And that's what we have to do as coaches. We have to train this. We have to teach this. We have to provide this for our athletes and our parents. It kills me the most when a parent hands a water bottle to an athlete in the middle of the game. Oh my gosh, I lose it. I absolutely lose it when I see that. It's one of my pet peeves.
So to be successful as a parent, never hand a water bottle to kids.
Not my program. Oh man, it's the worst. Or the other thing is when a kid throws their goggles at their parent and say, "Can you please put these away?" Oh, I lose it. I tell that kid, get out of the water, go grab your goggles, you put it away yourself. Don't ever do that around me again. And I feel like I'm preaching here, and I don't mean to. I'm just very passionate about these kids have so much talent, so much to offer, and we're holding them back from it because we want to strangle them through the process instead of just let them grow on their own.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I think what you're doing with your teams is hopefully other coaches that are listening and that hear that take that away, because I think it's a big deal. I was on your social media the other day, and I saw you put out something about the water polo tough with your kids practicing in like -15 degree. It wasn't that cold, but I was. Well, so last thing I want to hear about it. So how cold was the water, and how was air, and they still got in?
So we had 3 days of the heater broke, and we've been out of the water for so long. I was like, there's no way we're missing practice. Like, you suck it up. We'll keep you moving. We're going to swim and we're going to move. We're not going to sit around. The water was 72 degrees 3 days straight. I mean, kids' lips were turning purple. It was great. They were freaking out, but they once they got through it, they figured, hey, I can do it. And again, it's one of those struggling moments, pushing them to their limits. But yeah, 72 degrees it's cold. 72 degrees is really cold.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Jack. Well, we cannot thank you enough for being on the call today and taking the time and things like that. We will be inviting you back. We have a list of reoccurring invitees that we want to bring back, and you're definitely one of them, because I think you bring a lot to the table and to the podcast, and we can't thank you enough. And so thank you for your time and all the wealth of knowledge you have. And I can't wait again for when Nick and I get a chance to pick your brain on certain things. And I think we might need to bring up, Nick, a certain scenario that we maybe have seen and ask him how he would do something. Like, for example, I asked this Tony months ago about, the righty on 6-on-5, the number 6 player, is that player need to be a lefty or a righty? And Tony said a lefty, of course, because the shot, but I'm always thinking about the righty because of vulnerability of passing into the 2 and 3. It's a better direct pass. We can go over diagramming later, but I mapped it out for him, and he saw my opinion, and he didn't really agree with me, but whatever. It doesn't matter. But it's kind of things. It kind of opens up the door about dialogue. I think that makes us all stronger players and coaches.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm open for it. You guys, first of all, thank you for having me on. This is great. I love talking water polo. And please, my email, don't be shy, hand it out. Whoever wants to just have a dialogue, have a conversation, get on the calls with us. All my stuff is giveaway. I'm not a hoarder of information. It's not, there are a lot of coaches out there like, I can't share anything. They're going to know what I'm going to do. Now, the water polo is water polo. So however I can help the growth of any club or any athlete or any parent or any coach, I'm here for that. So let me know.
Perfect. And with that, we'll wrap up the podcast. Thank you for everyone for listening, and we'll go through the closing remarks here. So the Spin Lab is produced and recorded live by Mike Jones and Nick Helwig. It's supported by the Ohio Squirrels Water Polo Club. If you're never too old to get in the game, go nuts. And also by Marlins Water Polo. For love of the game, there's Marlins Water Polo. And our theme music is produced by Jason Shaw at audioandaudix.com. I hope I said that right, Nick. See you next time on the Spin Lab.